I'm doing amazing, having a fantastic start to the new year, and excited about our guest.
Right. You're a huge fan of The Mentalist. Our guest is Owine Yeoman. Owine, thanks for coming by. And Greg, I know I'm going to kick it off with you because you're such a big Mentalist fan.
Well, I got a question to ask you. So, all right, Van Pelt, Lisbon, Rigsby, or Jane, if you had to start a private detective agency with one of them in real life, who would you choose and why?
Well, you see, I'm obviously quite biased, so I have to say, having played Rigsby, that he would, he would merit a an instant inclusion. But I think in terms of just pure detective skills, you have to go with the Mentalist himself, right? I mean, there's a reason he is the Mentalist. So, yeah, I think that would be an interesting dynamic duo, the pared down Mentalist of just me and Simon Baker.
Cool.
I love it. And you think about specifically enough acting and your career and looking at things specifically. When you got this gig with The Mentalist, did you know it was going to be this big?
It's funny. I think just for your own sort of self-preservation, I remember I used to say to my agent, we'd finish pilot season. I'd always say, see you next pilot season, because you don't dare hope that it would go beyond that. And then every single year you sort of think, oh, okay, well, we picked up another season. Listen, no one ever sets out to make a bad show, and no one ever sets out to make a show that is, that wouldn't potentially become a major hit show. But when you do actually achieve that and you find that there is an audience that resonates with it, that's so satisfying, because I've made shows that haven't been watched and I've made shows that have been watched, and I tell you, it's the same amount of work. So it's a real payoff when you do resonate with an audience. And yeah, there was a real old world charm to that show. It kind of reminded me of things like Murder, She Wrote or Columbo, and there does seem to be an insatiable sort of appetite in global audiences for the sort of whodunit. Murder of the week, tune in, see who did it, and then do it all over again the following week.
Yeah, totally different than like the Squid Game, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've just taken it to another level, I think, with streaming now. I mean, it's so funny because I remember we were very PG-13 on The Mentalist. We couldn't even show like blood. If there was a victim of the week, then that victim would usually be sort of hid, and there wouldn't be any sort of particularly gruesome details shown. But now, I mean, things like Squid Game, it's a whole elevated level. I think, I guess probably part of being the internet age is that we're saturated with so much information. You got to raise those stakes. And I think I'm a big fan of that show. I think it's wonderful. I've just got into the second season, convinced that they wouldn't be able to best the first season.
Oh,
And the first episode is pretty good. I haven't gone beyond there, so no spoilers, please.
I
If you
won't
don't.
spoil it for you, but we just
Thank you.
learned about it on Friday. And by the end of the night on Sunday, we were like, when's season three coming out? Because that was
Oh my
amazing.
goodness! Wow. So you definitely binge that.
We went to town.
I'm binging all the Dexters, and after I'm done with that, I think I'll go to Squid Games.
Have you
So
watched The First Blood?
no, I'm right now. I'm the one that the second one that's where he goes away, not the newest one,
Right.
the one that's going in the '90s. But yeah,
That's a great show.
impressive stuff. I mean, it's amazing when you get hooked in a season and start binge watching it. Go ahead, Greg, with your next question.
Okay, cool. So Owine, as Wayne Rigsby,
Yeah.
if you were to launch a side hustle outside of CBI as Wayne Rigsby, uh, what would it be? Would you be more of a food truck guy or a tech startup kind of guy, or what would you do?
I think that would be slightly different from my own personal journey. Obviously I've gone into ed tech, and, I do that sort of as a return to my roots. It might surprise people. I think it's not unfair to say that Wayne Rigsby probably wasn't the sharpest tool in the box, but, I did my undergrad at Oxford, and for me, returning to education was a real sort of like return to my roots. My parents are both educators, so being able to start a company and be part of a company like EDU providing AI tutors for students, that has been a really, really blessed and wonderful experience for me to be able to leverage modern technology and give back to helping to improve future educational outcomes. I think Wayne would probably be, I knew you were going to say food. I backed myself into a corner in those early seasons because I thought it would be quite a good character choice to always be eating. And then I realized that character calories and my calories are the same. So, a couple of seasons of eating, I was like, this is a regrettable character choice. I'm going to have to, so I don't know if you noticed, but as it hits sort of the end of season two and the start of season three, Wayne started getting a lot more sort of discerning about his healthy food choices. So I started moving away from hot dogs and burgers and donuts to salads, and so maybe he would be in the sort of the healthy food space. I like the idea that maybe he sort of retired with Van Pelt and they have some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of organic, sustainable vegan venture, something like that.
No, that sounds amazing.
And before we go into his entrepreneurship, Greg, what would you say specifically enough made you like The Mentalist so much? You,
Me?
yeah, you, yeah.
Oh, I think it's everything that Owain said. It's Columbo. I love the Columbo, Macmillan and Wife, all those shows way back, in the 60s and 70s I grew up on. It was just so intriguing. And it was amazing how, Patrick would just see something that was just so obvious, and it became more obvious as he explained it, but you didn't quite catch it on your own, which was pretty neat. Yeah.
You know, it was interesting. We always used to joke that because obviously we know the script and we have to pretend, I said being the mentalist is one thing, but pretending to not be the mentalist is equally challenging because when you know the things that he's spotting, but you have to pretend not to spot them,
Yeah.
that's a big challenge too. So, but I think you're absolutely right. I think, it starts and ends in good characters. I think people, whether it's Dexter, whether it's Squid Games, whether it's The Mentalist, I think great shows live and die really in the relatability of these characters. And I think the beauty of that show was that everyone could sort of take a character and say, oh, I relate to that guy. Or, there's some challenges in my work life that feel like that, or some challenges in my personal life that feel like that. So I think relatability, I think great stories always begin with great characters.
So going to education, I'm a former teacher, had a tutoring business back in the day. I have a master's degree in education. This is really intriguing, this venture. So did you have an entrepreneur mindset throughout your career as an actor?
Yeah, I think, really being an actor is being an entrepreneur. You're
Yeah.
sort of constantly selling yourself. You're something of a renaissance man, Neil. I looked into your past, professional wrestler, sort
Okay.
of CEO of a touring company.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So,
Yeah.
I think everyone is on their hustle, whatever that hustle might be. And I take sort of 25 plus years in the entertainment industry, selling a product that predominantly was either myself or, series that I was producing or movies that I was involved with or producing. And that same creative spirit, I think, translates into whatever venture you might be doing. So whether the product is education or whether the product is creation, it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with a dear friend of mine who actually moved from producing to go and work at Kaplan, the test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were saying that it was really interesting because fundamentally you're in the content creation business, and whether that content creation is for entertainment or whether that content creation is for education, there's an awful lot of parallels. So I think I've managed to translate that same. And look, I think, whilst it's nice to enjoy success, the majority of acting is tremendously hard work. What is it they always say? Like overnight successes are usually 10 or 15 years in the making,
Mhm.
So I think I'm very used to hearing no, and I'm okay with that. And I think if you can do that and translate that tenaciousness into any business, you're in good stead. So I think that, with regard to EDU, which is our AI tutoring company, one of the biggest challenges that we have is trying to get people on board with new technology. I think everyone has an opinion about AI, and for most people, AI sort of is nothing more than ChatGPT. So, our first kind of challenge in introducing this is making people realize that there is a whole world of artificial intelligence outside of ChatGPT, and addressing the sort of the main elephant in the room when it comes to education, which is trying to use AI outside of it being a tool for cheating or plagiarism, which is
Yeah.
the number one concern for teachers right now. That, well, are we raising a generation of kids who are just going to ChatGPT, downloading their essays, asking for the answers, and there's no profit in that, and there's no sort of, there's no increase in educational outcomes. So what we have tried to address, I often describe EDU as the anti-ChatGPT, in the sense that yes, we give you the answer, but we also give you the learning methodology.
Right.
Really is fundamentally a flipped classroom. We're taking the learning materials of the school, we're ingesting them, we're leveraging AI technology to be able to help the teacher and the student. And in doing that, we really provide a tutor at home, a teacher at home. We're
I love
expanding
that.
the experience. So it very much, and I really sort of, I'm at pains to say, we really put the human in the middle. A human
Mhm.
in the loop, I think, is the vital important part of any new technology. So As the son of a teacher, the last thing I want to do is replace teachers. This is a tool that we want to use to help teachers prepare their lessons, curate their content, help students who might not traditionally be able to afford high cost tutoring. Being in the business that you've been in, Neil, it's a costly game.
Yeah.
I believe that, helping students prepare for SATs, GREs, whatever it might be, that shouldn't belong to people who could afford it. Education, in my opinion, is a basic human right. So, being able to democratize education, being able to open it up to a wide audience and leverage modern technology, that's the aim of EDU.
Oh, that's great.
Go, Greg. What were your
I'm just
thoughts
going
on
to ask
that?
you,
Yeah.
Owain, your role in the company, did you create it? Did you found it? What, are you a tech guy, by trade, in college?
I'm a huge tech enthusiast. I'll say
Yeah.
that. I'm certainly not a tech expert, but I've surrounded myself with much bigger technical brains to be able to enable that. And I think that that's an important part of any venture. Always put yourself in rooms with people who are cleverer than you. And to that end, the founder and CEO of our company, Dr. Michael Everest, was the founding brain behind this. He is a double PhD in both medicine and education. And I came to this as a consumer. Our children are both, they happen to be in the same school. So, we met socially. He showed me the product. It really just resonated with me. I've for a long time been looking for a way to try and get back into education. I love education. It was my first passion. I think my parents, when I graduated from Oxford, probably put their heads in their hands when I said, "Oh, I think I want to be an actor." Why? Why would you do that? Why waste a perfectly good education? But the I guess the other sliding doors version of my life, I would be a professor somewhere. I wanted to be a research academic, and at the last minute, I decided to roll the dice in entertainment. So I think the founding premise of this came from Dr. Michael Everest's vision, and his vision was that the pandemic exposed a lot of inequalities in the current educational system. I think, as we realize the human failure factor of lecturers or educators or schools being closed and unable to, he began to think, well, as an educator myself, how can I address these disparities? How can I create a solution that doesn't have scheduling issues, that doesn't have language issues, that doesn't have barriers that involve socio-geographic or financial obstruction, and out of that was born EDU. I saw the product, fundamentally it is an AI tutor within an educational learning platform. So imagine a flipped classroom. We take the materials from the school and it is a bespoke solution. So unlike ChatGPT, which is a generalized kind of, I guess, I always say I wouldn't stand Google up in front of a classroom to
Yeah.
teach in the same way that I wouldn't stand ChatGPT up, because it's going to give you some right answers and it's going to give you a lot of hallucinations and toxic and error-filled content. So what we have done at EDU is we built what's called a PIE, our proprietary ingestion engine, and an ICE, our intelligent curation engine, to make sure that our solution is error-free, that it's grade appropriate, that it's toxicity content. That if you put a solution in front of kids, they're going to ask it all the questions you don't want them to ask it. So just like with a real teacher, if they start asking off-topic things, the AI tutor returns them to the subject and says, look, we're not here to study that. But it also intuitively adapts. So what I love about this system is that we are using technology that can serve you if you're a pre-kindergarten student or if you're a double PhD in nuclear physics, and it intuitively adapts to your level through the technology, through our curation engines to understand what your learning level is. So this really is, and Neil, it's very difficult to address the educational needs of a pre-kindergartner and a post-collegiate studier. Those two don't often have a lot in common, but I think to be able to provide a low-cost tutoring solution, some of these pre-SAT, and standardized test prep packages, they run into thousands per month. Who can afford that? That is not a viable solution. So what Michael and I share, he was kind enough to bring me in as a partner of the company. I gladly act as a front-facing ambassador along with him on this. And the mission is really beautiful. For me, it's about creating a borderless educational solution. I don't know really who would want to be against that. It's that if we can make a difference with technology, that's a huge win for me.
Owain, I start thinking you're nailing every question that I'm thinking about with education, because ultimately I think that the way that AI tutors are going to be, or the way that everyone needs to interact with AI at one point in time.
Mm.
Ultimately, it's up to the consumer, the person there asking the right questions. It's a tutor supposed to help someone. So
Mm.
if a kid's doing 20 math problems, he might only need help with three of them.
Right.
That's where he asks the tutor how to do this problem and giving a step-by-step explanation so they can go solve the next problem. That's really what AI is all about. AI helps solve problems.
Yes,
And
you're absolutely.
it's a problem solving. It's not taking someone's job away. It's basically solving a problem of an assistant or certain things. And tutoring is all about not, I've sat and tutored for hours and really I'm just watching them do the problems and making sure that they're stuck. And then I'm going to go do the other one. Well, just imagine a parent being able to do this where they can do this anytime when
Mhm.
they're at a sporting event, when they're at a specific activity of some sort, and especially SAT prep, there has to be countless practices before. But you talked about the affordability. What
Mhm.
is that mission? So how do you make it affordable for everyone?
Yeah.
This
So,
solution.
as we touched upon, I'll take Kaplan as an example, right? They are the granddaddy of test prep, and they have a formidable record of producing effective test preparation packages. But I think the main concern for the majority of people is I can't afford that. Some of their test prep packages run into thousands per month.
Mm.
That's a mortgage. It's and I am an invested and involved parent in my kids' education, but there comes a certain point where you have to say, I can't afford that, and yeah, and I don't want it to be that those kids who are able to afford it are the ones who succeed. I'm interested in trying to help the single parent families, the inner city families, maybe the repressed communities, the underserved communities who, aren't traditionally sitting there going, oh, wouldn't it be great if we got some tutoring for our kids? Because it's just not an option. I think it's really interesting. Elon Musk sat down with Rishi Sunak a few weeks ago and did a wonderful interview, the ex-Prime Minister of the UK. And he said, I think the future of education is AI tutors, but not just AI tutors who are teaching you, but AI tutors who are your companions. And this is where we are already sort of going down this path. So, because my business partner is both a surgeon established in the medical space and educational space, we wanted to create a solution that was both tutor and wellness companion. Part of our philosophy is that if you feel better, you will learn more effectively. And I think that this is one of the things that we're not addressing in schooling these days. SEL, social emotional learning, we have an SEL curriculum as part of our offering. And being able to address that there are unique pressures in the modern classroom, autism, neurodivergency, dyslexia, everyone is in a different place in their educational journey. And we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that tests, albeit the, continued gold standard of collegiate acceptance, they're stressful and
Right.
kids are good at time management. They're not good at being put on the spot. I was and I was pretty good at tests. But at the same time, it always sort of, to me, it was a curious way of testing intelligence. It was like, I don't know if this is really showing if I'm any more intelligent. It just shows that I'm good at remembering stuff for a
Mhm.
short period of time. So what we've done is we've tried to streamline the access to these things. And what we have with our digital solution is the ability to offer the same quality educational resources for less than $100 a month across multiple subjects. Now, when I send my daughter for her weekly math tutoring, she will pay or rather, I will pay $100 an hour for a single subject. We can offer for less than that and a multitude of subjects where you can have personalized adaptive learning. So, and personalized adaptive learning that's accompanied by a wellness companion who says, hey, would you like me to help you plan your lessons? Would you like me to help you plan your revision? Can I help you with the stress of this? Would you like to do a breathing exercise? Post-pandemic, the modern classroom is a very fractured and stressful place to be. We acknowledge that, we see that, we want to help kids in their learning journey.
Wow, Greg, it's pretty impressive stuff, isn't it? What he's doing.
It's pretty awesome. My dog's chiming in, so
Yeah.
maybe you want to ask another question until she
Oh,
calms
sure,
down.
sure. I'll go back before you go to your final question. So, Owen, I think that we're seeing specifically enough that's happening is that education. I am not anti-chat GBT. I'm not anti-AI. I think AI is going to be the next generation to make us better humans. However, we have to continue to become better, and our kids today are not learning out of the box thinking. They're not learning to work on their own. They're constantly. So hopefully your technology is going to teach them to become more and more forward thinkers. Because if we're going to constantly use this technology, they're going to have to really, especially as an Oxford grad, look at Bloom's taxonomies and really look at the higher order thinking skills need to be taught in schools. They're still not being taught. And hopefully AI can help in these one-on-one tutoring, especially with your program, that will change that. Wouldn't you agree? That's so important if you're going to be able to utilize AI, is you have to have higher order thinking skills.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. And the Bloom's taxonomy example is a perfect one. And also just a basic return to the Socratic method of learning, encouraging discourse, encouraging conversation. This is something that we've really, really moved away from. Sam Altman, I think, said that, the rise of AI doesn't diminish human creativity. It actually asks for us to step it up. Yes, it increases our efficiency, but ultimately it's going to come down to the quality of prompting. My dad always joked that machine learning was based on a RIRO system: rubbish in, rubbish out. And I like that, because the truth of the matter is that these tools are only present and useful if the human in the loop is given quality prompting. So we are promoting a platform here that is asking students, should I say, to be critical thinkers, asking them to evaluate the processes and giving it to, an accessible base here, not just to the few who can afford it, but offering these tools to everyone. And I think if we do that and we continue to do that, then the educational outcomes will turn around, because we're in a pretty depressing place right now. Literacy and numeracy levels are at the lowest since the early 1970s. We're trending in the wrong direction. We want EDU to turn that around.
Okay.
No, it's pretty amazing. But you hit the nail on the head with that. Back, I want to say 10 years ago, all the kids, get into cybersecurity, become a chief information security officer. Now the big thing is that is going to be needed in the future and presently are prompt experts, because the quality of the prompt is everything, right? Yeah, you can feed it the context and you give it all information, but then you have to know how to ask it the correct way to get the proper results out. And large corporations are paying boatloads of money, for prompt experts today. So 2 quick questions, and then I'll get you to my last question. So do you see this as a way to help home educators, that are doing homeschooling as well?
Absolutely. That is what's interesting is that there is a rise in chronic absenteeism, right? So we need to address that, number one, in schools. So, with the current methods of schooling, and, my fear is that, as the new administration comes in, that with the dismantling of education out of Washington and relying on state levels, that could go 2 ways, honestly. It could really, really expose a period where state mandated core curriculums are wobbly for a period, so we need to be able to support that. More and more people are looking into homeschooling as an option. The beauty of this platform is that we are, like I said, we're democratizing educational resources. We're giving core curriculums now to people who at home can now have those quality educational resources. We also have a pay it back system, whereby for every developed school that takes this on, and for every developed customer that takes this on in our sort of Western world, we're now providing it for free to Somalia, to Africa, to India, to Pakistan, to rural, outposts that might not have schools to be able to go to. So it's not just standing up as a tutoring solution. For some people, it's standing up as a schooling in itself. And I think, to your point, being able to help those people who are, increasingly turning to homeschooling, whether it's because they can't afford conventional schooling or they've just lost faith in it, this is an opportunity to be able to hand them quality resources and say, here's the structure. This will help you curate as a teacher. It will help you have immediate data access into the progress of your students. Because as you know, Neil, I think any tutoring solution is only as good as the data that it forms. So I need to know the progress of my student. And, my daughter comes home at the end of school and said, I'll say to her, how was your day? I'm lucky if I get a, So, being able to have real-time data analytics. Your daughter studied this for this long. She struggled with these concepts. We're going to remediate her in these concepts. These are the things she's strong in. And this is her rolling average test score. That kind of data, I think, is going to become gold. That really is,
100%.
That's fantastic. So you're really going to help everyone, not just with advanced learning, but also just the fundamentals in general. around
Absolutely,
education.
because I think that's where we make the change. Do you know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
it, there is a lot to love about our schooling system. I went to a public school. I never paid for any schooling. I was lucky enough to find, and I remember there was a campaign in the UK that used to run that would say, "You always remember a good teacher." And I think back and I remember those teachers that inspired me. And my mum was one of those. She was my history teacher. It was mainly good. There were some bad days, but in the main, I always had a ride home and I always had some lunch money. So, but it is, I respect and love that profession. And I want to stress that this is a solution that helps teachers just as much and helps schools. We can unburden them of so much admin, so much bureaucracy, get teachers back into the business of teaching rather than having to worry about core compliance and curriculum compliance and
Right.
struggling with all that bureaucracy.
That's
Completely.
fantastic. Well, Owain Yeoman, the fundamentalist, I guess
I love
you are now, right? Here's my last question, and I can't wait to hear your response. So tell me, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Oh my goodness. I would say this, to continue to be curious. And I think that drives both my love of acting, it drives my love of education, and I think it drives my journey as a parent, as a husband, as a human, always remaining curious. I never assume that I know anything more than what I might find out. And I think that sort of ongoing journey, that's what inspired my involvement with EDU, remaining curious, being able to empower people with the ability to keep asking questions.
Fantastic.
All right. Best place we can find info on you. Where can we go? If people want to sign up.
Absolutely. edu.com. That's edyu.com. And of course, lots of information also on my socials at Owen Yeoman on Instagram and on X. But yeah, head over to edu.com. There's a free demo on there. We're really excited for people to get this in their hands and start using it.
Fantastic. And you have any other projects acting wise that you can talk about?
So I have a little appearance coming up in the new season of Bosch Legacy, which is a show that I love.
I love Bosch.
Yeah, great show, some wonderful folks over there. I'll say this without teasing too much, a much darker side to me that maybe fans of The Mentalist have not seen. So that's exciting. And I get to be on the other side of the law, which is always much more fun. And the shows right now. My producing partner, Lon Gale, who is behind The Bachelor, F-Boy Island, amongst many others. He and I are working on a couple of shows right now, reality shows for ITV Studios America. And I'm also, I've written and producing a new pilot, which is called ARA, the Asset Recovery Agency. So we're currently pitching that. So I'm a busy guy. I don't like to sleep much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Evidently.
All right. Appreciate it, sir. Thanks again.
A real pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Neil.
right.
Thanks,
That was the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show and celebrity interviews live from the Grotto with Greg Hanna.